Welcome back, in-game community. I'm Pierre, and I'm going to give you some important injury updates following Week 12 action, as well as some waiver wire recommendations. All right, so let's start with the big news. Dalvin Cook did leave the game early against San Francisco. It looked gruesome. It was a hard hit, and we are hearing it's a shoulder injury. Going to have an MRI on Monday to figure out what the extent of the damage is. Maybe a shoulder dislocation. It's hard to say, and we don't want to guess, but right now, there is a good chance he misses time. The obvious pickup, if he's available for some reason, is Alexander Mattison. You saw how effective he was and how he has been. Now, chances are Mattison hasn't been left on the waiver wire in your league, so you're going to have to go to a different running back, possibly. I'll give you some of those recommendations later in the video. Let's talk about another running back, though, Zeke Elliott. Now, this one is a lot of speculation because we're hearing conflicting reports. If you heard following Thanksgiving that his knee issue that has been bothering him for a couple of weeks now, and he's admitted it's kind of bothered him. And so some people are saying that the Cowboys are thinking of giving him a break, letting him rest, and not playing in Week 13, which means it's going to be all Tony Pollard, but also it means you're going to be without Zeke. Now, Zeke came out and said he hasn't talked to anybody about that. So maybe this is just, again, people wanting to assume things. Maybe there's not a reliable source behind this. We don't know what the deal is. Right now, we have to assume Zeke is playing until we hear otherwise officially, but don't be surprised if something happens with this. Tony Pollard should already be rostered in your leagues. If he's not, of course, you scoop him up. But again, you might have to be without Zeke for Week 13. Another casualty of Thanksgiving Day was DeAndre Swift. Now, he barely got going, left early in the game with a shoulder injury. This is definitely concerning because this is somebody who's been banged up all year, and we're hearing it's the same shoulder that has been bothering him. So he's being termed day to day, but this could easily result in him missing a game or two, but there's no reason to rush him back. We've seen that he's been limited before. Jamal Williams looked decent, ran for 65 yards, did catch a few passes. It could be the Jamal Williams show next week, but also don't rule out Jamar Jefferson. He looked good in relief a couple of weeks ago, so keep an eye on him as a deep league stash. Darren Waller also left early, didn't put up the huge numbers that we thought he might. Seems like it's an IT band injury, so he's being termed week to week. There is a chance he misses Week 13 also. Foster Moreau is the backup tight end. We've seen him make a couple of plays. It seems like right now, though, they're going to go to the receivers mostly. Hunter Renfrow already having a solid season. It's like that was all Derek Carr had eyes for on that game on Thursday. He just kept going to Renfrow. But we saw other receivers get in the mix too, guys like Zay Jones. But if you need a tight end, Moreau could be your fill-in. I also like Cole Kmet. He's a guy who's been coming on. He's put up some career high numbers 2 of the last 3 games. So Cole Kmet, definitely a strong waiver wire pickup at tight end if he's available. All right, now one of the other big injuries from Week 12 was one of the last guys we want to hear about an injury. Same time as Dalvin Cook went down, Deebo Samuel in that game also left the game, groin injury, and so that's something that could linger. We've seen that hold guys out for multiple weeks. Again, early to speculate on how long he might miss, if any. Deebo had been lighting up one of the most electric players in the league and one of the best fantasy players around, so it will be a huge loss if he isn't playing, but be prepared to replace him. Now, in that 49ers offense, well, Brandon Ayuk had already been coming on. We know that he's going to be the #1 receiver in Deebo's absence. George Kittle, of course, at tight end. If you're looking for a deep replacement, maybe Juwan Jennings. He scored a touchdown in that game, and he's starting to get a little bit more involved in the offense. So that's somebody that you could look to, or you could look to another receiver that I'll mention toward the end of this episode. A.J. Brown has been placed on injured reserve, meaning he's going to be out for 3 weeks. Waiver wire ads you might want to consider to replace him would be Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, who did score a touchdown this past week. But again, you're going to be without him this coming week, so that would be only as a stash. And Michael Carter, the rookie running back for the Jets, looked like he'd been coming on, kind of claiming the lead role in that backfield. He also placed on IR, so going to be without him for the next 3 weeks. You probably don't want a piece of that Jets backfield if you don't need to. Looked like Ty Johnson might be a good replacement. He did nothing. Was replaced by Austin Walter. A lot of times, Tevin Coleman. It's just a mess. So honestly, at this point, just avoid the Jets backfield. I want to avoid the whole Jets offense outside of Elijah Moore at this point. All right, so whether you are trying to replace an injured player or not, here's some of the top waiver wire pickups heading into Week 13. Matt Breida. Where did this come from? A guy who wasn't even good enough to keep his starting job with the Dolphins a year ago, and now all of a sudden he's caught back on with Buffalo Bills, and it looks like he's replaced Zach Moss. Zach Moss had been a solid kind of low-end RB2 for the first half of the year. He was a healthy scratch this past week, and Matt Breida basically has replaced him. And Breida looked pretty good too. 11 touches, 55 total yards, and a touchdown. He's got the speed. We always know that he had the talent. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. If he can do that, his role in this Buffalo offense makes him fantasy relevant. Now, he did run behind Devin Singletary in terms of carries, but this is somebody who, again, will split time with Singletary. He does have some value. It's hard to say he has standalone flex value, but in good matchups, he can be played because he does have pass catching ability. He does have, of course, touchdown upside in Buffalo. Talk about the Titans also. Dontrell Hilliard, well, here's your Derrick Henry replacement, right? I don't know where this came from. A guy that was on the practice squad 2 weeks ago, and all of a sudden he's taken Adrian Peterson's spot, and he looks like the best running back in Tennessee. Both he and Deontay Foreman ran for 100 yards against the Patriots. Nobody saw that coming, but Hilliard was the lead runner, 123 yards and a touchdown, and he's the pass catching back, so it looks like he's a more valuable piece. Now, unfortunately, as I've already mentioned, Titans are going to be on a bye, so you can't use him next week. But if you're looking for a running back to stash for later on towards the fantasy playoffs, Hilliard looks like a strong bet. And last but not least, a guy that we had very high hopes for in the preseason, and that's Curtis Samuel of the Washington football team. Just has not been able to get on the field because of a groin injury that's lingered and then a setback. It looks like he finally will be a full go heading into next week. Going to get on the field a little bit in week 12. If everything goes right and he doesn't re-aggravate himself, Samuel could be the guy who takes that wide receiver 2 role in Washington. We know what he can do. He could be used in the backfield a little bit too. So this is the time to stash him and then see if he does produce some value down the stretch. All right, that does it for the injury and waiver wire report for week 13. Hopefully this helps. If you guys appreciate this, hit that subscribe button. We definitely appreciate it. Thanks.